Good evening, you are watching ReNEWS in English. I am Sana Tumanyan. Official Yerevani silent while an Azerbaijani journalist working in the U.S. citing their sources in the White House has noted that Donald Trump may host the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan at the White House on Friday. Our correspondents have tried to get confirmation of this information from the Prime Minister's office, the Prime Minister's spokesperson, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, but there has been no response. As a reminder, after the Pashinyan-Aliyev meeting that took place in Abu Dhabi, U.S. President Donald Trump announced that Yerevan and Baku are on the threshold of peace and that they have worked a miracle here. The original source of the news is a post on X by Alex Rafaoglu, the official State Department correspondent for the Turan agency. Tehran issues warning against Western interference in Caucasus peace talks. Iran has delivered a sharp rebuke to what it calls non-regional actors, declaring they should not be allowed to interfere in the affairs of the South Caucasus, a clear message aimed at Western powers mediating talks between Armenia and Azerbaijan. In a statement to Armenia state-run Amman Press, a spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry stressed Tehran's opposition to outside involvement. However, the official also voiced support for Armenia's Crossroads of Peace initiative, stating its implementation would have a positive impact on the region. The spokesperson reiterated Tehran's firm red line, emphasizing that any new transport routes must be established with full respect for internationally recognized borders and must not violate the sovereignty or territorial integrity of any state.
Ensuring peace and stability in the South Caucasus is of vital importance to us because we perceive the peace and security of that region as a component of our own peace and security. We will undertake all possible efforts to establish peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Another important point, which we have always emphasized and believe all regional states must appreciate, is that third parties, non-regional actors, should not be allowed to interfere in the affairs of the South Caucasus.
And now for a noteworthy revelation from Reuters. Washington is discussing Baku's potential accession to the Abraham Accords, and the precondition is the normalization of Armenian-Azerbaijani relations. The accords were signed during Trump's first term in office to establish diplomatic relations between Israel and 4 Arab countries. This move was aimed on one hand at containing Iran's influence and on the other at a new expansion of American diplomacy. According to the publication, Washington's prerequisite is the normalization of Armenian-Azerbaijani relations. The price for joining this agreement is in effect clearly defined. Peace with Armenia is an agenda item for Azerbaijan, as a primary motivation behind all of this is the strengthening of position in the region. Last week on our broadcast, I already addressed the suspension of the Red Cross's activities in Azerbaijan. Member of Parliament Tigran Abrahamian is now sounding the alarm about this issue. He notes that even before the closure of the Red Cross office, Baku was shutting down various UN programs and the correspondent offices of international media outlets. All of this, however, is still being met with silent tolerance in the international arena. According to the MP, the only international organization through which it was possible to maintain contact with Armenian prisoners is leaving the country. Yet the West looks on at the actions of Baku's dictator through the eyes of a spectator. In her report, Monica Hayroyan presents this very topic.
The last communication with the Armenian prisoners of war held in Baku has been severed. The families of the prisoners have raised the alarm. Azerbaijan has blocked Red Cross representatives' access to the Armenian prisoners. Both in-person visits and video calls with relatives are now prohibited. The last Red Cross meeting with the Armenian prisoners took place in June.
Azerbaijan's conduct in no way contributes to the protection of human rights. As a result, we have the complete isolation of Armenian hostages. And of course, the cessation of the Red Cross's activities will have negative consequences.
According to human rights defender Sarana Shahakyan, Azerbaijan has already found an alleged replacement for the Red Cross, a body that, to put it mildly, cannot be effective as it is a local mechanism.
This is a deceptive move, as there are already alarms that the Armenian hostages are being held in isolation. To create the illusion of addressing the state of isolation, Azerbaijan is sending its own anti-torture group, which cannot operate independently.
In a conversation with us, the Armenian office of the Red Cross confirmed that the organization's activities in Azerbaijan Azerbaijan are set to be suspended, and the future format for contact with the prisoners remains unknown. According to Sarana Sahakyan, the only solution to this problem is consular visits from Armenia. But how can that be organized when Armenia and Azerbaijan do not have direct diplomatic and consular relations?
The possibility of mediated visits exists. Armenia can delegate its right to a third neutral country, and that country's consular staff would visit Armenian citizens on behalf of Armenia and attempt to assist in the exercise of their rights.
As a reminder, Baku officially confirms holding 23 Armenian prisoners, 17 of whom were captured during Azerbaijan's September 2023 aggression against Nagorno-Karabakh. They include representatives of the military-political leadership of Artsakh, who have been illegally held in Baku prisons for 2 years. Many relatives of the prisoners are convinced that the real number is much larger, but Azerbaijan denies this fact. Monica Haidroyan, ReOpen Media.
And again, Azerbaijan, they are sparing no effort to erase the Armenian trace in Artsakh. The destruction of cultural treasures has become especially tangible in recent days. The surviving churches, khachkars, monastery complexes, and other historical cultural monuments are crucial pillars of the Armenian identity. The cultural and historical heritage that have become the very heartbeat of Artsakh are the focus of my colleague Mary Danielian.
Churches, khachkars, monuments, and even entire settlements are being wiped off the map with the aim of eliminating the Armenian trace. Azerbaijan is continuing its policy of vandalism in occupied Artsakh. According to Hovik Avanesov, the ombudsman for the cultural heritage of Artsakh, Azerbaijan's actions are not new. The policy of appropriating and destroying Armenian heritage, which dates back to the Soviet years, was renewed with new vigor during and after the 2020 war.
Great damage was done to the historical landscape of Shushi. Numerous buildings of historical significance were destroyed, as were residential neighborhoods. In parallel, so-called false restoration projects began on Armenian churches in various settlements of Artsakh, causing our historical and architectural monuments to lose their historical identity.
Following the complete seizure of Artsakh, the scale of the cultural genocide expanded, initially targeting buildings of historical significance. More than a dozen villages have been completely destroyed, including the heroic Karin Tak near Shushi. There are over 5,600 state-registered monuments in Artsakh, but the total number exceeds 10,000. Since 2020, more than 800 cases of vandalism have been recorded. The St. John the Baptist Church in Shushi has been razed to the ground, and the historical architectural integrity of the Gaziantep Cathedral has been distorted.
We must not just wait to record the next acts of vandalism before we speak about it. This issue must be on our daily agenda and be a key topic alongside the issue of prisoners of war during all meetings and all negotiation processes.
The Ombudsman notes that the inaction of the international community, its merely ceremonial and toothless statements, as well as the political and economic patronage expanded to Azerbaijan, create an atmosphere of impunity.
Moreover, instead of condemnation and the application of clear sanctions, delegations of various levels illegally visit Artsakh, which are immediately followed by large-scale acts of vandalism.
The latest vivid proof in Avanesov's opinion are the fires that have been burning in Artsakh for more than 10 days, threatening over 100 historical and architectural monuments. Fire is not a new method of vandalism for Azerbaijan, considering the white phosphorus arson attacks of 2020. In parallel, they destroyed the bust of our compatriot, the great seascape painter Hovhannes Ayvazovsky, on his very birthday, a move to which the official representative of the Russian MFA, Maria Zakharova, also responded.
There are Ayvazovsky's works. Somewhere they dismantle his monuments, and I dismantle the ignorance in those who have never seen his canvases.
Konstantin Zatulin, deputy chairman of the State Duma Committee on CIS Affairs, characterizes the demolition of Ayvazovsky's monument as an example of vandalism encouraged and instigated at the state level by the Azerbaijani authorities.
These wonderful fighters against Armenian cultural influence, who today rule in the territory of the former Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, have not in fact limited themselves to just dismantling Ayvazovsky's monument. They had already managed to desecrate the monuments to famous Soviet military commanders born in the Armenian village of Chardaklu, announced a policy of demolishing religious monuments, and destroyed a large number of khachkars.
Baku's actions, according to Avanesov, are one of the largest cultural genocides of the 21st century. Turkey and Azerbaijan are not only carrying out cultural genocide, but are also exporting its methodology. In this situation, the silence of the international community and the lack of sufficient efforts by Armenia threaten the complete loss of Artsakh's heritage. Mary Danielian, Levon Voskanyan, ReOpen Media.
The West, our neighbors, and now let's focus specifically on Europe. The EU mission in Armenia has conducted its 3,000th patrol. This milestone reflects our continued and steadfast commitment to peace and stability in the region. EUMA will continue its close cooperation with the various communities in Armenia, the mission stated in a post. The U.S. is talking to Putin with deadlines. If a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine is not signed by August 8, Trump will put sanctions into effect, and President Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff may visit Russia this week. In Gaza, it's a humanitarian tragedy with children dying from insufficient food. By the way, Peskov has stated that Putin is ready to meet with Zelensky after preparatory work has been conducted at the expert level, and Erdogan will visit Ukraine. This was announced by Ukraine's ambassador to Turkey. And in Taiwan, there is anomalous rainfall. The Global News Roundup in one report.
The Russian Ministry of Defense has reported that over the last 24 hours, its air defense system shot down 2 HIMARS missiles and 274 unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, launched from Ukraine. It also stated that strikes were carried out against Ukrainian military airfield infrastructure, air defense positions, drone depots, and temporary personnel bases in 139 areas. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported that on Saturday, Ukrainian forces repelled Russian attacks, shooting down 1 Russian missile and 178 drones. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has appointed Lieutenant General Anatoly Krivonoshk as commander of the Air Force. In Gaza, Palestinians risk their lives daily to obtain food due to a chaotic food distribution system. Israeli forces periodically open fire towards food collection points, purportedly for security reasons. Under these conditions, the most vulnerable groups, women, children, and people with disabilities, are unable to receive aid, leading to a sharp increase in deaths from starvation and malnutrition. In the last 24 hours, the number of people killed by gunfire and who died from starvation in Gaza has exceeded 90. During an official visit to Pakistan, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian thanked Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif for his support during attacks by Israel and the U.S. on Iran's nuclear facilities. Pakistan, while condemning the attacks, has defended Iran's right to have nuclear energy. The parties agreed to expand economic ties to increase their trade volume to $10 billion. Supporters of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who is accused of an attempted coup, have held protests against Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes and President Lula da Silva. The protesters are demanding amnesty for the participants of the 2023 coup attempt while welcoming the U.S. sanctions imposed against the judge. Bolsonaro, who is under house arrest, will nevertheless face trial on charges of conspiracy. In Taiwan, torrential rains have caused floods and landslides, submerging homes and blocking mountain roads. Over the past week, rainfall has reached 2.6 meters, which exceeds the island's annual rainfall. The floods have resulted in fatalities, more than 5,900 evacuees, and numerous injuries. It has been announced that the intensity of the rain will decrease, but the risk of landslides and floods remains high. David Genjoyan, ReOpen Media.
The decision to cut the thread of life, is it the result of an inability to overcome severe psychological phases? Or my colleague Narine Ghukasyan has followed the studies on suicide, addressed the statistics and spoken with specialists. Unfortunately, especially among the teenagers, ending one's life becomes the only decision. The reasons can be numerous, from addictions to different types of complexes.
Suicide is considered the 10th leading cause of death worldwide. Suicides, like other negative phenomena, have their own mechanisms of contagion. Psychologist Lilit Chachatrian says that due to certain cultural and ethno-specific factors, when a phenomenon becomes, so to speak, fashionable, a certain group of people tries to escape from seemingly insurmountable problems in the same way. This is especially true during adolescence, when the irreversible nature of the line between life and death is not so deeply understood.
The same teenagers might see that someone has taken a similar step, and especially if they took it and survived. They can liken this to a form of heroization and try to imitate it.
Shavarj Melkonian, head of the acute poisoning department at Armenia Medical Center, finds the numerous cases of drug addiction among minors alarming. When all red lines have been crossed and it seems to them that it's impossible to live anymore, they turn against themselves.
The mortality rate is very high, and they know very well how to do it in a way that makes it difficult to save them.
Another very dangerous trend has recently been observed among adolescents. The doctor sounds the alarm. Teenagers are being taught methods of suicide through social networks.
Recently, we have had several cases where the patients got their information from TikTok, and with very mad outcomes. Young people, both boys and girls. This is a very acute issue.
According to Melkonian, the problem won't be solved just by saving lives. The dangerous trends must be prevented, and all relevant bodies must seriously address this to prevent and eliminate such cases in our country.
I urge everyone, all our citizens, to be extremely careful and attentive towards their children, because this is a terrible thing.
Suicide attempts mainly occur in large cities. The doctor notes that suicides and suicide attempts are least common in villages.
The psychologically stable people live in the villages. We must definitely mention that, after all, we have been through a war, and we have many young men who returned from the war with post-traumatic stress syndrome. To be honest, I expected the number of suicides by poisoning among them to be high, but I can say that the boys have stayed strong, and I'm very happy about that.
The brutal war of 2020 has left its negative mark on the lives of women. Suicide attempts have increased significantly among them.
It's the mother, the wife, the sister. I have had such cases. I hope that these attempts will decrease. Time has a healing quality.
According to psychologist Lilit Katratrian's observation, socioeconomic, political, and global events, which are mostly negative and traumatizing, have a very deep impact on an individual's psychology. For them, ending their life remains the only way to overcome difficult and dead-end situations.
It seems the individual's personal resources are not enough to fight against and counteract certain traumatic, stressful realities.
Worldwide, poisoning accounts for up to 30% of suicidal cases. According to Dr. Melkonian, in Yerevan alone, suicidal cases of drug poisoning account for 70 to 80%.
It happens that after taking that step, they themselves call an ambulance and ask to be hospitalized.
While no deaths have been recorded in cases involving medication, the opposite is true for chemical substances, with a 40% mortality rate.
According to worldwide statistics, men make 1.7 times more suicide attempts.
Men resort to more aggressive means, unlike women. Women are more inclined to commit suicide using medication.
Specialists consider the unrestricted sale of drugs in pharmacies to be concerning. According to the psychologist, every drug should be sold in specific doses.
In committing suicide, it is important whether the person is in a psychologically healthy state or already has pathological disorders. During pathological disorders, the risk and probability of recurrence are much higher than in a healthy person who faces an incidental or situational, unsolvable problem and simply cannot overcome the situation.
Every difficulty has many paths to overcome, and a person must understand that there are ways out. They just can't find them at that moment. A friendly environment, being busy, having a beloved job, and a positive mindset help a person stay away from such ideas. According to data provided to ReOpen by the Investigative Committee, during 2024, the structure subdivisions investigated 816 criminal proceedings under Article 162 of the Criminal Code, inciting suicide, of which 416 were terminated and 2 criminal proceedings were sent to court with an indictment. During the first half of 2024, 478 criminal proceedings were initiated under the same article, of which 166 were terminated and only 1 criminal proceeding was sent to court with an indictment. Noreen Gukasian, ReOpen Media.
From the heat in Armenia, let's follow the trail of the European heat wave. A state of emergency has been declared in Portugal due to the high risk of forest fires. The air temperature is reaching 44 degrees Celsius. Emergency services have been put on high alert. These types of weather anomalies are caused by hot air masses from North Africa reaching the Iberian Peninsula. This is the second time this summer that Spain has been caught in a heat wave. The heat is forecast to continue until the end of the week. The peak of the heat in both countries is expected on Monday and Tuesday. The Scandinavian countries are also experiencing unprecedentedly high temperature. The region is entering its longest heat wave since the 1960s. The anomalies on planet Earth aren't giving way to one another. After a powerful earthquake in Kamchatka, volcanic activity is being observed. The Krashenika volcano has spewed an ash column up to 4 kilometers high, and the lava flow erupting from the Kluchevskoye volcano has reached 3 kilometers and is approaching the Bogdanovich Glacier. And yesterday in the capital Yerevan, according to data from Armenia's Ministry of Education, Science, Culture and Sport, 30,000 spectators enjoyed Jennifer Lopez's performances, her vintage songs and colorful show. They were treated to an emotional and energetic J-Lo, her moving words to the audience and her spectacular dances. With a large influx of tourists, Yerevan is breathing with summer rhythms, warmth and hospitality. And on that note, I bid you farewell for today. This is ReNews and I am Sona Tumanyan. Goodbye.